The past never truly disappears. It only waits quietly for the moment to return. And for the narcissist, the past is a sentence they can never escape. They may deny it, twist the truth, or create false stories to paint themselves as the victim. But the truth remains like a mirror reflecting back at them, reminding them every day of what they did to you. You may have once feared that they got away, that they lived peacefully after hurting you. But remember this: no one can destroy another without leaving scars on their own soul. And your absence, silent, strong, and final, becomes the haunting soundtrack that follows them for life. In today's video, we will expose the truth. Why a narcissist can never escape what they have done to you. Stay until the end, because only when you fully understand this will you see the real power of silence and the power within yourself. And before we begin, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the healing and awakening messages we share with you every week. 1. The past never disappears, it only hides in silence. There is a simple yet profound truth. The past never disappears. It does not dissolve just because someone denies it or pretends it never happened. The past cannot be controlled by lies, nor does it bow to stories woven to conceal the truth. And it is here that the narcissist falls into an inescapable paradox. They want to bury what they have done. They want to seal their mistakes into a dark box, lock it shut, and throw it into the void. They want to believe that if they invent another story where they are the victim, the misunderstood one, or even the hero, then reality itself will yield. But truth does not serve anyone. It exists independently, cold and permanent. Every action, every word, every wound they inflict is etched into the fabric of time, and time, even in silence, preserves it all. That is the sentence no narcissist can erase, no matter how cleverly they twist reality. Narcissists are masters at crafting stories about themselves. They can turn selfishness into sacrifice. They can paint their indifference as you being too sensitive. They can effortlessly embody the victim, even when they are the one who caused the wound. But every manipulation comes at a cost. To protect the illusion, they must constantly deny reality. To maintain the false story, they must suppress fragments of genuine memory. Yet what is buried never vanishes, it only sleeps. And the deeper it is forced down, the larger it grows as a ghost in their subconscious. You may never hear an apology. They may never admit they were wrong. But believe this: the price of denial is imprisonment within their own mind. The narcissist thinks they have escaped, but in truth they are locked inside a prison of their own making, filled with anxiety, insecurity, and relationships that collapse one after another. What terrifies them most is not your anger, not your accusations, not even your hatred. Because anger is still a reaction, and a reaction means they still occupy a place in your life. What truly sends them into panic is your calm. It is when you are silent, no longer arguing, no longer needing to prove, no longer hoping for acknowledgement. When you walk away in peace, you become the mirror reflecting what they have always tried to avoid, the truth. And that truth, no matter how many masks they wear, can never be erased. You don't need to shout that they were wrong. Your calm presence is already a powerful declaration. I know the truth, and I don't need your confirmation. That is the heaviest sentence for someone who survives on the illusion of control. In the narcissist's world, power is maintained through reaction. They need your tears to feel important. They need your anger to feel powerful. They need your explanations and pleas to know they are still at the center of your mind. But when you fall silent, the cycle collapses. No more stage to perform on, no more audience to manipulate. They are left with themselves, and that is their greatest fear, because within them there is no peace, no foundation of self-worth. Stripped of your energy, they are forced to hear the echo from within, the truth about what they have done. Your silence is not escape. It is a declaration, a boundary, a statement. You no longer have access to my emotions. And that is the sharpest form of justice. You may sometimes wonder, will they ever be punished? Can they still live happily after everything they've done? But that question comes from the fear that they have gotten away. In reality, no one causes harm without carrying the scars of it themselves. They may laugh, boast, or wear the mask of success. But in the long nights, when the performance ends and they are left alone, they must live with the darkness they themselves created. That is justice. Not loud, not public, but strong enough to corrode their facade day after day. And you don't need to wait for their downfall to feel relief. True justice is when you go on living well, healing, growing, and being happy despite what they did. Your rising is the most undeniable proof that they never win. Remember, you don't need to argue to prove the truth. You don't need revenge to restore balance. Time and truth will do that on their own. Your only task is to move forward, be reborn in peace, and let the past deliver its own sentence to the one who once caused you harm. 2. Denial is nothing but a form of imprisonment. There is a common misconception that the narcissist can easily escape the consequences of what they've done, that they can cause harm, walk away, and continue life as if nothing ever happened. But the truth is the opposite. Inside them, denial is not freedom, it is a form of captivity. A narcissist spends their whole life running from reality, building walls of lies and illusions to keep their fragile ego from collapsing. They convince themselves they are innocent, that others are at fault, that they are the true victim. But every act of avoidance comes at a cost. Because nothing buried ever disappears, it simply waits in the dark, growing heavier, like a stone tied to the soul, forcing them to drag their unease through life. The narcissist may weave elaborate scripts in which they are always the center, the righteous one, the admired one, or at least the pitied one. They can repeat a story so many times that even they begin to believe it. But truth doesn't vanish just because it's ignored. Reality has its own way of surfacing, and what they bury inevitably rises in their weakest moments. It might appear as unexplained anxiety, relationships that repeatedly collapse, or a void that no achievement can ever fill. This is the price of denial, a sentence with no courtroom, but one that binds them for life. You may have hoped they would admit their wrongs, offer a sincere apology, or come back and take responsibility. But narcissists don't live in the world of truth. They live in the world of illusion. And in that illusion, apology doesn't exist, because admitting guilt means shattering the mask they've spent a lifetime protecting. What they fail to realize is that denial doesn't erase guilt. It only drives it deeper, smoldering beneath the surface, gradually eroding them from within. What makes this denial even more dangerous is that it comes with projection. Narcissists cannot bear to look at themselves, so they pin their faults on others. They blame, they slander, they make you believe you are too sensitive, too weak, too selfish. But in reality, those very actions reveal how imprisoned they are by the truths they refuse to face. The more they deny, the tighter they bind themselves to their own darkness. Think of it this way. Truth is like a mirror. The more the narcissist tries to cover it, the more haunting it becomes. They are terrified to look into it, because reflected back are the things they've done, the wounds they've caused, the trust they've betrayed. Instead of facing it, they turn away, throwing up curtains of distraction, but the mirror remains. And in quiet moments, when the noise of excuses fades, when the stage has no audience, they are suddenly confronted with a reflection they cannot escape. This is why many narcissists live in constant unrest, why they need a steady stream of supply to feel significant. Because without someone to react, to feed them energy, they are left only with themselves and the truth. That is why they chase chaos, drama, and turbulent relationships. Not because they crave love, but because they crave distraction. The external turmoil is their shield against the internal one. But no one can run forever. Truth, no matter how deeply buried, finds a voice. It echoes in repeated failures, in inexplicable breakdowns, in sleepless nights. The narcissist thinks they've outsmarted reality, but in fact they've only locked themselves inside a cycle of lies and insecurity. They are prisoners of what they refuse to face. And this is the point you must remember. Your silence, your calm, is the clearest mirror they cannot escape. You don't need to argue to prove it. You don't need to scream to expose it. Truth requires no defense, it simply exists. And the narcissist, whether they admit it or not, carries it in their own mind. They can deceive the world, but they cannot deceive themselves forever. In the end, true justice does not come from revenge. It comes from the way you live. When you walk forward, heal and grow, you become living proof that they never won. While you grow stronger, they sink deeper into the very darkness they created. That is justice, silent but enduring, upheld eternally by time and truth, no matter how fiercely they try to deny it. 3. You become the mirror they cannot face. What terrifies the narcissist is not your anger. They are not afraid of your outbursts, your accusations, or even your hatred. To them, all of those emotions are proof that they still hold power in your mind. Every tear, every outburst, every reaction makes them feel strong. But there is one thing that truly sends them into panic: your calm. When you no longer argue, no longer seek to prove, no longer crave acknowledgement, their power collapses. It is your serenity that becomes the mirror reflecting the truth they always try to escape. When you fall silent and walk away, you unintentionally become living proof of what they have done. You don't need to shout that they were wrong. You don't need to recount every detail to convince others. Your calm presence alone is a powerful declaration. I know the truth, and I don't need you to admit it. For the narcissist, this is the harshest sentence, because they can neither control that truth nor control you anymore. To them, it feels like an inner collapse. Deep down, the narcissist desperately clings to the mask they've built. They need the world to see them as a poor victim, a misunderstood genius, or an untouchable figure of power. But when you leave with calm, that mask begins to crack. Because you no longer play the role in the script they wrote, you've stepped off the stage they constructed. From that moment on, every story they spin loses its force. They can tell the world you were weak, wrong, or not enough. But the way you live peaceful, grounded, unbothered by their validation is the strongest rebuttal of all. Narcissists fear silence not because it is empty, but because it is full of truth, full of strength, full of boundaries they can no longer cross. When you are silent, you stop fueling them. The cycle they rely on hurt you, wait for your reaction, and then feed on that sense of control gets broken. And when no one reacts, they are left with themselves. That is their greatest horror, because within them is only chaos, emptiness, and insecurity. Pay attention. In the moments you stop reacting, they will try everything to pull you back. Sometimes they act weak, sometimes they lash out, sometimes they pretend to repent. All of it is just an attempt to spark a reaction. But if you remain calm, if you refuse to fall into their emotional traps, they are forced to face a painful truth. They no longer have a place in your mind. And for a narcissist, that is an unbearable defeat. Truth is like light. No matter how many times it's covered, it finds a way to shine through the smallest cracks. And you are that light. When you no longer let them control you, when you live your own life, every step you take becomes undeniable evidence. They may hide the truth from others, but they cannot hide it from themselves. Your calm is the echo that forces them to confront what they've done. They can pretend to be strong, pretend to be happy, but inside, that truth clings to them, wearing down the mask day after day. And you must remember, silence is not weakness. It is strength. It is the clear declaration that you are free from their grip. It is the boundary that states, you no longer have access to my emotions. For the narcissist, this is not just the loss of a relationship, it is the loss of the energy they need to survive. And that terrifies them. You don't need to get revenge. Your peaceful life is the greatest punishment. They may keep telling distorted stories, but every day you live fully is another day truth speaks in silence. Justice here is not a noisy courtroom, but a quiet, enduring process. You thrive, while they remain trapped in their own darkness. And that, in the end, is the fairest sentence of all. Remember this. Narcissists do not fear your resistance, they fear your calm. They do not fear your tears, they fear your serene smile. They do not fear your accusations, they fear your silence that no longer seeks explanation. Because when you reach that state, they have no way to control you. And in that very moment, truth speaks not through words, but through your life itself. 4. Silence, the wordless sentence. In the world of the narcissist, their power is not maintained through truth nor through love, but through your reaction. Every time you cry, they feel important. Every time you get angry, they feel powerful. Every time you explain, argue, or beg, they know they are still the center of your mind. And this is what sustains the illusion of control they cling to so desperately. But when you go silent, that familiar cycle collapses instantly. There is no longer a stage to perform on, no audience to witness their act. And in that moment, they are left with themselves, something they were never prepared to face. You must understand that your silence is not empty. It is not surrender or escape. On the contrary, it is power. It is the declaration that you no longer allow anyone else to dictate your emotions. It is a clear boundary. You no longer have the right to touch my soul. For the narcissist, this is the most bitter defeat, because they live off psychological control, and when it vanishes, it feels like being cut off from oxygen. When you are silent, you cut off the emotional supply they are used to feeding on. That could be your anger, your pain, or even the fragile hope that they might change. All of those reactions serve as fuel to maintain their control. But when you stop providing it, when you withdraw your participation, they are forced to face an unbearable void. And that void was never created by you. It was always inside them, the emptiness they've tried to fill by manipulating others. This is why your silence often drives them into panic. They may try anything to drag you back into the cycle. They might appear weak, telling you they need you, that they're going through hard times. They might explode in rage, accuse you of being cold, or pretend to repent. All of it has just one purpose: to provoke a reaction, because as long as you react, they feel they exist. But if you remain calm, if you stay rooted in your silence, they realize the key to controlling you has slipped from their hands, and that is their greatest fear. It's important to remember that your silence is not only meaningful to them, it's meaningful to you. It is your declaration of freedom. It is proof that you've chosen peace over chaos, stillness over pointless conflict. It marks the moment you step out of the game they forced you to play. And when you step out, the game cannot continue. They may keep performing, but without an audience, the show collapses on its own. Many people ask, but if I stay silent, won't they think I'm weak? The answer is, perhaps. They will cling to any story that helps keep their fragile ego intact. But that no longer matters, because you are not living to serve their perception of you. You are living to protect yourself. And that silence, far from being weakness, is the highest expression of strength, because you've learned to stop fighting for something unworthy. The narcissist may pretend they're unaffected by your silence. They may act indifferent, as if you no longer matter. But don't be fooled. Inside, your silence is a wound they don't know how to heal. It is a constant reminder that they lost their grip, that they are no longer the center, and the truth, no matter how many times they deny it, cannot be erased. Justice here is not loud. It doesn't need a courtroom or a public verdict. It unfolds quietly as you keep walking forward, rebuilding your life, finding peace without them. While you move ahead, they remain stuck in the darkness of their own making. And that is the real punishment, not one inflicted by you, but by themselves. So if ever you doubt, if you wonder whether your silence has value, remember that it is the most powerful tool you have to break their control. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. It holds truth, freedom, and inner strength that no one can take away. And for the narcissist, that silence is the greatest torment, because it marks the moment they lose what they crave most: power over your life. 5. Silent justice and your rebirth. One of the fastest ways a narcissist begins to collapse is the moment they realize the mask they've worn for so long is cracking. When control slips from their hands, when no one believes the story they've spun, they panic and reach for their last weapon. manipulation through words and appearances. They cling desperately to the narrative, the false story they've carefully constructed. In it, they are always right, always the victim or the misunderstood hero. And they will do everything possible to force you back into the role they've written for you. The weak one, the unstable one, or even the guilty one. But once you step out of that script, once you live calmly and firmly, the story begins to lose its power. You become living proof that none of their words were ever true. This is something the narcissist cannot endure. They survive only as long as others believe the image they project. When someone challenges that image simply by living authentically, the mask trembles. They may fight frantically to preserve it, smear your name, invent lies, or distort reality to protect the version of truth they've fabricated. But truth has a quiet strength. It needs no defense, and it endures over time. When you choose to live authentically, you don't need to argue or confront. Your inner peace and clarity alone are enough to unravel their entire illusion. You may notice them changing strategies. When they realize you no longer react, they may pivot to playing the victim before others. They'll claim you are heartless, that you abandoned them when they needed you most. They seek a new audience to keep the show alive. But what they fail to see is that audiences eventually drift away because no lie can hold people forever. In time, the cracks in their story become undeniable. Outsiders will notice the inconsistencies, the lack of sincerity. And when that happens, the illusion collapses at its core. In that moment, you are no longer a supporting character in their script. You become the author of your own story. And that is the greatest freedom. You no longer chase explanations, no longer prove yourself to anyone. Every calm step you take, every achievement you earn, every peaceful smile you wear is like a blade cutting through the mask they cling to. They cannot argue with the reality you live. They can fabricate, but they cannot erase the truth revealed in your life. Narcissists often try to maintain control by creating an alternate reality where they are always right and you are always wrong. But that reality is fragile, built on the blind belief of others and your continued reactions. When you step away, when you refuse to participate, when you decline the role, the performance collapses. And without a script, they are left with nothing but themselves, with all the emptiness, shame, and guilt they've been running from. What makes you stronger than ever is not exposing them in front of everyone, but living true to yourself. Your silence, your steadiness is how you slowly dismantle their illusion. Because you don't need to win an argument to be the victor. Your inner peace, your rebirth, your happiness, these are undeniable proof. When you reach this point, you realize justice doesn't need to come from outside. It is not a legal verdict, nor a public punishment. Justice unfolds in the truth that cannot be hidden, in the void they face when control slips away, in the darkness they built and now remain trapped in. Meanwhile, you move forward, reborn, growing, stronger than before. That is justice, silent, enduring, and the deepest victory of all. And here lies the most important truth. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove them wrong. Every day you live well, every step you take in peace is a powerful testimony. The narcissist may cling to their story, but truth quietly dismantles it piece by piece. And that truth is your strongest ally. Remember, your greatest power is not in shouting the truth, but in living without needing to say a word. Your serene presence, your empowered silence, and your life built on genuine values, these are what the narcissist cannot bear, because they remind them that, in the end, every lie decays while truth always stands firm. Finally, there is one truth you must hold on to. The narcissist may deceive, manipulate, and spin 1,000 stories, but they can never escape the truth. That truth lives within you, in your memory, in your calm presence as you walk away. Every day you live authentically, every moment you heal, every smile you wear, every step of steadfastness you take is a powerful declaration that they no longer have power over your life. And that is a sentence no court needs to declare, yet one that will haunt them forever. Justice in toxic relationships does not come from revenge. It comes from your refusal to keep playing the role they wrote for you. It comes from your choice to be silent, to walk away, to be reborn in freedom. Every time you don't react, every time you refuse to be pulled back into the old cycle, you affirm your inner strength. And the truth is, you are the one holding the power now, not them. Remember this: your silence is not surrender. It is your most powerful declaration. It says, I no longer belong to your game. I have found my value and strength within myself. The narcissist may ignore, may act cold, may spread lies, but all of it is just a mask to cover the truth that they have lost the most precious thing, the ability to control you. And you don't need to prove anything anymore. Every step forward, every small success, every peaceful moment you claim is the strongest rebuttal to every lie they tell. Don't concern yourself with what they say to others. Truth has its own way of revealing itself, and time always sides with those who live authentically. If you have ever feared that they walked away unpunished, rest assured, no one can cause harm and walk away untouched. They carry their own darkness with them, and that darkness will slowly eat away at them from within. You don't need to witness it, because true justice is not their collapse, it is your rebirth. And this is the most important message of all. You don't need to seek justice outside yourself, because you already carry it in the way you choose to live. Every day you choose peace, truth, and yourself, you are redefining power. No longer their power over your life, but your power over your own. If these words resonate with you, if you've lived through this and are now on the path of reclaiming your inner strength, remember, you are not alone. There are millions of others learning to let go, to heal, to rise again after the wounds left by the narcissist. And together, through walking this journey side by side, through sharing truth, we become living proof that they never win. So if you want to continue receiving messages of healing, reminders of the strength within you, make sure to hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and stay with us until the end of every video. Because this journey is not just yours, it is ours. The journey of all of us who have been hurt, but who still choose to rise, to stand strong, and to live a life of freedom.